Well, today marks 5 years since an attempted coup in Turkey that changed the course of the country's democracy. On the evening of the 15th of June, a faction within the Turkish military tried to take over, but they ultimately failed. And since then, President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan has detained hundreds of thousands of opponents, including public servants, journalists and academics. Abdülhamit Bilici was watching on that night from Washington, where he had fled after the newspaper he ran was taken over by the government just months earlier. And he joins us live. Good to talk to you, Hamid. Now, what struck you when you're looking back to that moment 5 years ago about this coup as it played out?
It was terrible for a Turkish citizen and for a journalist to see such a horrible attempt to destroy democracy. I condemned it, and I still condemn it. But I mean, since I am a journalist for over 25 years, I know the Turkish history that had 5 successful, quote-unquote, military interventions in one way or another. So this was not similar to those coup attempts that were successfully carried. So it was like a caricature or a cartoon of a real coup, because the timing was miserable, the coordination was miserable, and it failed in a couple of hours. And it was clear that it will fail, because the coups usually in Turkey and in the world generally happens in the early morning when people are in their beds. But this was on prime time, and the media was live. You know, the first thing that the coup generals do is to silence the media, but this was not the case. So, and the media was live, but the orchestrators of the coup were trying to close down the traffic on one side of the bridge in Istanbul, which has no meaning for a successful coup. So, I mean, still, there are lots of thousands of question marks about the authenticity of the coup. So many people think that this was an orchestrated or staged coup, which benefited only Erdoğan and his party.
But of course, Erdoğan blamed it on supporters of Gülen's Hizmet movement, a movement you've been linked to. What do you say to those accusations?
I mean, I wish, whoever participated to such a coup is an horrible act, as I said in the beginning, and I condemn. But I mean, the conditions were so bad that we, as the citizens of the country, are not able to see a real picture of what happened really on July 15th, because at that night, 5,000 judges and prosecutors were purged, which has nothing to do with the coup. So 200 critical media outlets were silenced and shut down. More than 200 journalists were imprisoned. So under those conditions, how you can see what is the real motive and what happened in July 15th. So today, after 5 years, still we don't have a clear picture of what happened. But looking retrospectively, and when I see the Erdoğan's description of the coup as a gift from God at that night, so now looking retrospectively, I see that it helped only Erdoğan. So the opposition destroyed. Now the biggest opposition party's chairman is in jail. You know how he defined the coup attempt? He said this is the biggest conspiracy of our century. And the main opposition party leader defined the coup as a controlled coup, which Erdoğan knew coming but did not do anything to stop it.
And to your
so
point,
250 people.
Yeah, and to your point,
killed.
I mean, it really just started the collapse of democracy in Turkey, which is what we are looking at today.
I mean, the destruction of democracy did not start with the coup, of course, and Turkey was never a perfect democracy. It was struggling to be a better democracy. But my newspaper, for instance, was silenced 5 months before the coup. And several other newspapers and TV stations were shut down before the coup, even 1 year before the coup. So Turkey, I mean, Erdoğan was doing good in terms of democracy until 2011, 2012. But then he switched from a democratic path into an autocratic path. And the coup attempt, the July 15, was the last nail in the coffin of the Turkish democracy. So that, I mean, if we miss that point, we will not understand it correctly. And now I see 7,000 academics are purged. As I said, 5,000 judges are purged from their positions, and there is no independent media, no independent judiciary, and there are opposition parties still, but they are proposing to investigate what happened on July 15th, but those proposals are rejected by the members of the ruling party, Erdogan's party. This is very strange. But those journalists still, some of them are attempting to investigate what happened really, but some of them were jailed just because of those questions that they are questioning the official narrative.
Yeah, and your newspaper, before it was shut down, had been quite supportive of some of the policies of Erdogan, and then you said the mood shifted. What do you think was driving the fear that you saw in Erdogan, and the reason that he felt he needed to pursue this crackdown?
I think 2013 is the critical year for this. I mean, in the summer of 2013, there was some protest we call Gezi protest in the downtown Istanbul. The young people were protesting Erdogan not to destroy a green park, a small area, not to construct a shopping mall on top of that. And Turkey was a rising star of democracy in the world. So in shock of us who were supporting Erdogan, in shock of all the world supporting Erdogan, Erdogan destroyed those protesters, and the police killed a couple of people, unfortunately. So this was one of the very important time that Erdogan switched from democratic path to authoritarian perspective. The second was the exposition of the corruption at the end of that same year, that his ministers and his relatives, his family members, were involved in a very dark bribe scheme, which involved violating international sanctions against Iran in return to getting some bribes from a businessman. So in that position, Erdogan had two options. Either he could destroy democracy and judiciary and free media to survive, or to go to the court to respond to the allegations. Erdogan picked this first option. So since then...
Yep. And what...
Since then, excuse me.
No, I was going to say, so in terms of that, though, what hope do you have that any rights are going to be restored, that there is any hope for this to come to an end somehow? Because even if the population are against some of what he does, he sort of controls the country with an iron fist.
You know, when the fundamentals of democracy is destroyed, it is not easy to get them back, to fix them back. Even if a majority of the Turkish people are against Erdogan, even if they hate Erdogan, but opposition is fragmented, and the media is not free. 95% of media is today under Erdogan's control. The judiciary is under his control. Parliament lost its significance after July 15. So under those conditions, Erdogan's popularity is not rising, but the mechanisms are already destroyed. So it's very difficult. But of course, this is not hopeless case. And in 2019, there was an election, and they lost some local municipalities, the main in Istanbul and in Ankara, which is an important sign that Turkish people still aspire for democracy if they can. But as I said, conditions, since 2013, became worse and worse. And unfortunately, now even the member and the leader of the third biggest party in jail. So can you imagine the situation, how it is hard to go back to democracy?
Indeed. Hamid, appreciate you talking to us and just trying to give us some analysis of where Turkey is placed today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.